The voice in your head isn't you. The biggest lie you've ever believed isn't that you're lazy. It isn't that you lack discipline. It isn't even that you were born without enough willpower. The biggest lie is believing that the voice inside your head saying, "I'll do it later," is actually you. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself that today would be different? You were going to wake up early, finish that project, go to the gym, study for an hour, finally start building the life you've imagined. But then something happened. A tiny thought appeared. You have plenty of time. Check your phone first. You deserve a short break. You'll focus better this afternoon. It sounded reasonable. It sounded logical. So you listened. Hours disappeared. The task remained untouched. And by the end of the day, the only thing louder than that voice was your frustration. Here's what most people never realize. Researchers who study habits and decision-making have found that much of what we do every day is driven by automatic patterns rather than conscious choices. Your brain is constantly trying to conserve energy. If it has learned that avoiding discomfort leads to an immediate reward, it will repeat that strategy over and over until it becomes your default setting. That means the voice convincing you to procrastinate isn't revealing your true personality. It's simply replaying a mental script your brain has practiced thousands of times. This changes everything, because if that voice was learned, it can also be unlearned. The problem is that most people fight procrastination the wrong way. They try to force themselves to feel motivated. They wait for inspiration. They blame themselves every time they fail. But motivation is unreliable, and self-criticism only strengthens the cycle. Every broken promise becomes more evidence that you can't trust yourself, and the brain quietly stores that belief for the next decision. What if the real battle isn't against procrastination at all? What if the real battle is against a mental program that has been silently running in the background for years? A program so familiar that you've mistaken it for your own identity. Imagine waking up and hearing that same voice, but this time it no longer has the power to control what you do. Imagine sitting down to work without spending 20 minutes negotiating with yourself. Imagine your brain beginning to crave progress instead of distraction. That isn't fantasy. It's exactly what happens when you change the way your brain predicts reward, effort, and identity. In this video, you'll discover 5 practical steps that gradually reprogram your brain, weaken the automatic patterns behind procrastination, and build a mind that acts before excuses have time to grow. Each step prepares your brain for the next one. And skipping even one piece means missing the mechanism that makes the transformation stick. But before you can silence that voice, you need to understand why it seems to know every one of your weaknesses better than you do. And once you see where that voice really comes from, you'll never hear it the same way again. Step 1. Expose the hidden script your brain repeats every day. Every time you procrastinate, it feels like you're making a decision in the moment. But you're not. In most cases, you're following a script that has already been written. Think about the phrases that automatically appear in your mind. I'll start after lunch. I need to feel more motivated. I'll be more productive tomorrow. This will only take a minute. None of these thoughts seem dangerous on their own. In fact, they often sound responsible and reasonable. That's exactly why they're so effective. Your brain doesn't need to force you to procrastinate if it can persuade you with a story that feels true. Behavioral scientists have observed that the brain loves prediction. It constantly searches for familiar patterns because repeating them requires less energy than creating new ones. Every time you delay an important task and replace it with something easier, your brain records that sequence. Over time, it stops asking whether it's the best choice and starts treating it as the default response. This is why procrastination becomes so frustrating. You're not fighting a lack of intelligence or ambition. You're competing against a mental shortcut that has been reinforced hundreds or even thousands of times. Here's the trap most people never notice. They don't question the first thought that enters their mind. They assume that because they thought it, it must be true. But thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. Some deserve your attention. Others are simply echoes of habits you've repeated for years. Imagine hearing a smoke alarm every single morning, even when there's no fire. At first, you'd react immediately. After enough false alarms, you would stop trusting it. The voice of procrastination works in the opposite direction. It keeps sounding believable because you've obeyed it so many times. The more often you follow it, the more authority it seems to gain. So here's your first exercise, and it sounds almost too simple to matter. The next time you hear yourself thinking, "I'll do it later," don't argue with the thought. Don't try to suppress it. Just pause and ask one question. Is this my conscious decision? Or is this an old script trying to replay itself? That single moment of awareness creates something incredibly powerful. It separates you from the automatic pattern. Instead of becoming the voice, you become the observer of the voice. Psychologists have long explained that noticing an automatic behavior is often the first step toward changing it, because awareness interrupts repetition. You don't have to win the battle yet. You only have to recognize that the battle has begun. Once you stop treating every thought as the truth, your brain loses one of its strongest weapons. But recognizing the script doesn't stop it from pulling you back. There's another mechanism working behind the scenes, and it's the reason you can know exactly what you should do and still fail to do it. That's what we're going to uncover next. Step 2. Starve the inner negotiator before it starts talking. Have you ever noticed that the hardest part of almost any task isn't doing it? It's the few minutes before you begin. That's when the voice in your head suddenly becomes an expert at making deals. It tells you to wait until you have more energy. It reminds you that your desk isn't organized enough. It convinces you to answer one message first, make another cup of coffee, or watch a quick video before getting started. None of these choices seem harmful, but together, they create the perfect escape route. Researchers who study decision-making have found that every unnecessary decision drains mental energy. The longer you stay in the thinking phase, the more opportunities your brain has to choose comfort over effort. This is why so many people lose before they even start. They mistake preparation for progress, while their motivation quietly fades away. Highly disciplined people aren't immune to this inner negotiation. The difference is that they don't give it time to grow. They understand that hesitation feeds resistance. Action weakens it. Think about jumping into cold water. The longer you stand at the edge analyzing the temperature, the harder it becomes to jump. But the moment you move, the debate ends. Your brain no longer has the luxury of arguing because your body has already made the decision. The same principle applies to almost every meaningful goal. If you want to study, open the book before asking yourself whether you feel like studying. If you want to exercise, put on your shoes before thinking about the workout. If you need to write, place your hands on the keyboard before deciding whether inspiration has arrived. Experts in habit formation often explain that behavior creates motivation more reliably than motivation creates behavior. Most people believe they need to feel ready before acting. In reality, the feeling of readiness often appears after the first small action. This is why micro-actions are so powerful. They lower the brain's perception of effort. Instead of telling yourself you're going to work for 2 hours, tell yourself you're going to work for 2 minutes. Instead of promising to read 50 pages, promise to read 1. The goal isn't to finish. The goal is to make starting so easy that your inner negotiator has nothing left to argue about. Every time you act before the excuses arrive, you teach your brain a new pattern. You're sending a powerful message that action comes first and emotions follow. Little by little, the old negotiation loses its influence because it stops producing results. You've just taken away one of procrastination's favorite weapons. But the voice in your head still has another source of strength. It survives because your brain has learned to crave something even more than comfort. It craves instant rewards. And until you change that, distractions will always seem more attractive than your biggest goals. Step 3. Rewire your dopamine so action becomes the reward. At this point you may be wondering, if I know distractions are hurting me, why do I still choose them? The answer has less to do with self-control than most people think. It has to do with what your brain has learned to expect. Your brain is always trying to predict where the next reward will come from. Every notification, every short video, every refresh on social media, every quick piece of entertainment delivers something your brain loves. Uncertainty followed by a possible reward. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's completely useless. But because you never know what comes next, Your brain keeps chasing the next swipe, the next click, the next notification. Researchers who study motivation have shown that the anticipation of a reward can be even more powerful than the reward itself. This is why distractions don't simply steal your time. They train your brain to expect constant stimulation. Then, when you sit down to work on something meaningful, your brain compares that task to the endless stream of instant rewards it has become accustomed to. The result is predictable. Deep work feels slow. Progress feels invisible. Your attention starts searching for an easier source of pleasure. The mistake most people make is trying to eliminate dopamine. That's impossible, because dopamine isn't the enemy. It's one of the systems that helps you pursue goals, learn new skills, and stay motivated. The real problem is where your brain has learned to find it. Highly productive people don't necessarily have more discipline. In many cases, they've simply taught their brains to associate satisfaction with progress instead of distraction. You can begin doing the same. Instead of waiting until you finish a huge project to feel successful, celebrate the moment you begin. Notice the satisfaction of completing the first paragraph, solving the first problem, finishing the first 10 minutes of focused work. Your brain is constantly creating associations. If every productive session ends with a small feeling of accomplishment, those connections grow stronger over time. This is why tracking progress can be so effective. Crossing off a completed task, watching a streak grow, or seeing visible evidence of improvement gives your brain a reason to keep moving. The reward is no longer somewhere in the distant future. It's happening during the process itself. Gradually, something remarkable begins to happen. The same brain that once searched for distractions starts looking forward to making progress, because progress itself has become rewarding. But there's one obstacle that can destroy this transformation overnight. Even if your brain starts enjoying productive work, you'll continue sabotaging yourself if you keep believing you're the kind of person who always procrastinates. That's the identity we have to change next. Step 4. Destroy the identity of "I'm a procrastinator." One sentence has probably done more damage to your future than you realize. "I'm just a procrastinator." It sounds harmless. It sounds honest. But every time you repeat that sentence, your brain treats it as a description of who you are, not just what you did. Psychologists have long observed that people naturally behave in ways that remain consistent with their identity. If you believe you're an organized person, you tend to organize your environment. If you believe you're someone who keeps promises, you're more likely to follow through. The opposite is also true. When you identify yourself as someone who always procrastinates, every delay becomes proof that the label was correct. Notice how dangerous this cycle becomes. You postpone one task. Then you say, "See, this is exactly who I am." The next challenge arrives, and your brain already expects the same outcome. Without realizing it, you're no longer fighting a habit. You're protecting an identity. Here's the truth. Your identity is not built by your opinions. It's built by evidence. Your brain doesn't care what you say in front of the mirror. It pays attention to what you repeatedly do. If today you complete one difficult task, you create one piece of evidence. Tomorrow you do it again, and another piece of evidence appears. Week after week, those small actions begin to outweigh the old story you've been telling yourself for years. This is why small victories matter far more than dramatic promises. Many people wait for one perfect day when they'll suddenly become disciplined, but your brain doesn't change because of one heroic effort. It changes because it keeps seeing proof that you're becoming someone different. Start replacing the old identity with a new one through your actions. Instead of saying, "I need to stop procrastinating," think, "I'm becoming someone who starts before feeling ready." Instead of saying, "I hope I stay consistent," think, "I'm someone who shows up, even on difficult days." The wording matters because it changes what your brain begins looking for. Once your identity shifts, your decisions gradually start matching it. You stop asking, "Do I feel motivated today?" and begin asking, "What would someone who keeps promises to themselves do right now?" Ask yourself one question. If someone followed you for the next 7 days and judged your identity only by your actions, not your intentions, who would they conclude you are? The answer isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to show you where your current evidence is leading. The good news is that your next action can begin changing that evidence immediately. But even a strong identity can collapse if your environment keeps pulling you toward old habits. That's why the final step isn't about becoming mentally stronger. It's about making your future self stronger than your present emotions. Step 5. Make your future self stronger than your present emotions. Most people believe disciplined individuals have mastered their emotions. They imagine successful people wake up every morning feeling excited to work, exercise, study, and chase difficult goals. They don't. The difference is much simpler and much more powerful. They don't rely on how they feel in the moment. They build systems that make the right decision easier than the wrong one. Think about your future self for a second. Every night, that future version of you makes promises. Tomorrow I'll wake up early. Tomorrow I'll stop scrolling. Tomorrow I'll focus. Tomorrow I'll become more disciplined. Then tomorrow arrives, and a different version of you takes over. This version isn't thinking about long-term goals. It's thinking about comfort. It's tired. It wants the fastest reward possible. And because your environment makes distractions effortless, your present emotions defeat your future intentions. This isn't a character flaw. It's how the brain naturally works. Behavioral researchers have repeatedly found that people are far more likely to follow through when the desired behavior requires less effort than the alternative. Your brain constantly chooses the path with the least resistance. That's why willpower alone eventually fails. Every decision drains a little mental energy. If your success depends on making hundreds of difficult choices every day, sooner or later, your brain will look for an escape. Highly disciplined people solve this problem before it appears. They prepare their environment in advance. They leave the phone in another room before starting deep work. They place the book on the desk the night before. They prepare their workout clothes before going to bed. They block distracting websites before opening the computer. They remove unnecessary decisions, because every decision they eliminate is one less opportunity for procrastination to win. Another powerful strategy is making decisions before emotions get involved. Instead of saying, "I'll work when I feel motivated," decide exactly when and where you'll begin. Tomorrow at 8 a.m., I'll sit at my desk and work on the report for 30 minutes. When the situation arrives, you're no longer deciding. You're simply following a commitment your rational mind already made. Over time, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your environment starts pulling you toward productive actions instead of constantly tempting you away from them. Discipline no longer feels like a daily battle because you've stopped forcing yourself to make the right choice over and over again. You've redesigned the game itself. And that's the secret most people never discover. The strongest mind isn't the one that resists the most temptation. It's the one that rarely has to fight temptation in the first place, because it has built a life where success is the easiest path to follow. The day your brain stops arguing with you. At the beginning of this video, I told you something that probably sounded impossible. The voice telling you to procrastinate isn't really you. Now you know why. That voice was never born with you. It was built one repeated decision at a time. Every excuse you accepted, every promise you postponed, every distraction you chose instead of progress strengthened a mental pathway that slowly became automatic. But there's something incredibly empowering about that realization. If repetition created that voice, repetition can also weaken it. You don't need to wake up tomorrow as a completely different person. You don't need unlimited motivation, perfect discipline, or extraordinary willpower. You only need to interrupt the old pattern often enough for your brain to realize there's a better one available. Remember? The 5 steps. First, you learn to recognize the hidden script, instead of blindly believing every thought that entered your mind. Then you discovered how to act before your inner negotiator had time to convince you to wait. After that, you shifted your brain's reward system, so progress itself became satisfying instead of constantly chasing instant gratification. Next, you replaced the identity of someone who procrastinates with the identity of someone who acts, one small piece of evidence at a time. Finally, you learned that real discipline isn't about becoming emotionally stronger. It's about building a life where your environment, your routines, and your systems naturally support the person you want to become. None of these changes happen overnight. Researchers who study habit formation consistently show that lasting transformation comes from repeating small behaviors until they become automatic. Your brain is constantly adapting. Every focused work session, every time you resist an unnecessary distraction, every promise you keep to yourself strengthens the neural pathways that make the next good decision easier. One action may seem insignificant. 10 actions begin creating momentum. 100 actions create a new identity. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The voice doesn't disappear completely. It still whispers. It still offers excuses. It still promises that tomorrow will be a better day to start. The difference is that it no longer controls you. You hear it, recognize it, and keep moving anyway. That's the moment your brain stops arguing with you and starts working with you. So don't wait for motivation after this video ends. Prove to yourself that your new identity starts now. Choose one task you've been avoiding. Start it before your mind has time to negotiate. Even if it's only for 5 minutes, take the first step immediately, because the life you want won't be built by the promises you make to yourself. It will be built by the actions you take before the excuses have a chance to speak.